George St-Pierre posted a picture of himself in a sauna in Brooklyn over the week. That was all that he posted, but instantly speculation began because of the size of George that he is doing a test cut to 155 pounds. While we have absolutely no evidence that is true, George is just crazy enough and definitely disciplined enough that he would do something like that. For me, that's a weird thing to do. If I'm going to fight at 155, I'm going to weigh 155 one time in my life. That's that night. And I'll never see that weight again. He's just crazy enough that he would go out and see how he felt and see what he had to eat and see what it would take to get down there and do a test cut. So I have to give it to the author of this report who took the picture that George put out on, I believe it was his Instagram. If I'm wrong, it was his Twitter. If I'm right, it was both. And then create the story that perhaps he was doing a test cut. Now, I also have to say, even though the writer did speculation to put around that, George was noticeably smaller. And there's a couple of good reasons for that, but one of them is that he's doing a test cut. As weird as that may sound, it's one of the reasons George is so great. He loves training. He loves living his life under a very high microscope of discipline. He loves challenging himself. So I can't dismiss that, even though it is a hell of a reach to take a simple picture that George posted on social media and then create the story that he's doing a test cut. Even though that is a reach that would normally upset me and make me come on here and put a reporter on blast, there is some reason with this nutty guy, okay, fine line between genius and insanity. Where's George St-Pierre sit? He was a genius in his field. He was a genius at the way he did things. And there was a couple of quirks that he had that come along with it. He might be doing a test cut. Plus, I see the same thing. And we are speculating here, but I see the same thing that the reporter that said he was doing a test cut sees, which is a sizably smaller George St-Pierre. And I'll tell you this. I was talking about Michael Bisping on Wednesday's show. I was adding for you the speculation, in case anyone missed it. I'm sure you guys did not miss it. But in case you don't recall, I was adding speculation that I'm not sure I believe that Bisping's retired, and one of my pieces is what good shape he's in. You ever see Michael Bisping around? You guys watch him on TV? He has not gained a pound. Michael Bisping walked around roughly 197 pounds, 198 pounds when he was cutting down to 185. Michael Bisping he's not over 200 now. He's 197, 198, 199 right now. He has not gained a ounce. Generally, fighters do, but I will offer to you this. They gain that weight much like gymnasts, much like wrestlers, much like people who had to control their nutrition and live under a level of discipline and make a lot of sacrifices when it came to feeding themselves, drinking that Coca-Cola, whatever it could have been. And they will then later reward themselves through life, and they do gain weight. And then they get teased relentlessly for it. But there is a truth to that. Some of that teasing does come. They're training 2 and 3 times a day. They got weigh-ins coming. All those things go away. And then they play catch-up. They play catch-up for all the meals that they missed. It's a real part of it. The other side of that, though, and the reason I lay that out for you once again on today's show, is the opposite can also be true. And don't forget when George St-Pierre was going up to 185 pounds. He did not make it. Maybe you guys don't remember that weigh-in. George never made it. He was going up to 185. He was going up to middleweight. He actually failed. You'll remember the weigh-in. He was underweight. I believe he was 183, plus he had the clothes on that they allow, shorts and underwear. But he had done interviews saying, this is so hard. I'm having to eat so much. I'm feeling sick. I'm sick to my stomach. I'm forcing so much food into my body all day, every day. I've also done that, and I had to go back into high school when I did that. But I wrestled at 185 pounds, and I was weighing about 173. And so I was trying to get up to 185. And when I made the decision to go 185, I had also made the commitment to myself about a heavy lifting program and a heavy protein. There were some drinks out that these drinks still exist today, but they were a little more popular back then, called Ensure. They're largely marketed to like senior citizens for whatever reason, because they have a lot of nutrition and protein in them, and you can just drink that when you You don't have time to cook for yourself, but anybody could drink them. I used to drink 6 and 7 and 8 of those things a day, plus having meals. I never gained a pound. I was 173 when the season started. I was eating and drinking and lifting and doing. I was 173 when the state championship rolled around last tournament of the season. But I remember how sick I felt trying to get all that protein down. On my birthday, my dad used to take me to GNC. My buddy Justin and I were very into bodybuilders. We used to look at like Muscle and Fitness magazine. We're big pro wrestling fans. But we'd always look at those wrestlers and their big muscles, and we look at those bodybuilders, and they said they were doing this many curls a day, so we'd go and do that many curls a day. And so anyway, my dad would take me to GNC, and on my birthday, I could get anything I wanted. One thing, but it was anything I wanted. And I would just walk around the store for whatever guy had the most muscles, boom, I'd buy that. And I remember one time I bought this huge tub. It was this great, like a bucket of protein powder, so I could look like the guy on the cover. Oh, my goodness. I had to drink. It was terrible. It was like 80 ounces a day with 12 scoops of this protein. I couldn't even get it down. It was so much. I had to drink so much of this to get the protein in, to get it down, that I remember being disciplined and focused, and I was going to get through that one bucket, that one canister that we bought. I was never going to do it again. And the second that thing ran out, I never did do it again, ever. I was in middle school at that time, so whatever age you are back then, 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, 30 years have gone by. I've never bought that again. I had such a bad experience. The point I'm trying to make to you, George St-Pierre, much like most fighters, gained weight because of the sacrifices they made, because he had the experience at 185 of force-feeding himself. As soon as he got through that contest, my belief is, instead of like most fighters that goes and buys a box of donuts that night and puts himself into a sugar coma and then keeps that on going for another couple of weeks, I bet he did the opposite. I bet he was so tired of eating that food and pumping those weights and trying to get up to middleweight that he would have shrunk. And in the picture, you could tell he was noticeably smaller. Now, there's no way to know what he weighed, right? He used to fight at welterweight. He had a cut to make welterweight. He walked around, in good hard training around 77, 78. I'd be surprised if he's smaller than that, but that still puts him at, 7, 8, 9 pounds smaller than the last time we saw him on TV. And if he is doing a 155 test cut, which that crazy son of a bitch could be, why else would a guy even be in a sauna? What, he just wants his body warm? There are some people that do that. Saunas do exist and people do go, but George St-Pierre, again, I'm speaking to a guy that used to have to go into saunas to make weight, that had to go in there as a level of discipline, almost as a punishment to get weight off. Those guys generally do not look forward to just going into saunas for a good time, okay? So he may be doing a test cut down to 155. We have no evidence, but we do have a photograph. And George put it out for a reason. I think he wanted us to speculate on it. I think he wanted us to come to that conclusion. And I think he is watching that fight on October 6th between Khabib and Conor much closer than he's letting on.